I'm William.
I'm Lex.
We are Dead Gentry.
Responding to a Facebook message requesting a glass paperweight video.
Yes.
Message us.
Here we are.
Look what happens. If you message us, we'll make the video you want.
For sure.
We're not kidding around about that.
We were slightly delayed on this one because the message got hidden, but
yeah,
we found it. I think we fixed the glitch.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're talking about glass paperweights, obviously.
Yes.
The paperweights. And some smaller figure rolls. Like the fish and the starfish and the jellyfish.
$250,000 for a glass paperweight was the world record.
$250,000?
$250,000.
Wow.
It's famous among glass collectors.
Is it any of these?
William goes, wow, for the purposes of the video, but he's a glass collector. This is part of his glass collection.
Right.
A very, very small part. So he already knew this. But he's trying to go, wow.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
That.
For someone who doesn't know that, so June 26, 1990, it was a French basket Millefiore piece. Famous. And Sotheby's auction, $250,000.
That's a lot.
World record holder. So, you can find things similar to that. People should know that. They're like, oh, I will never find that. You can. People do. They find them in thrift stores, yard sales, not always in an antique shop, not always a piece that someone knows.
Right.
Estate sales. I've seen it in garage sales. So, I don't know what I'm saying here. I suppose what I'm saying, I guess part of learning this more for your own personal obsession with collecting or reselling purposes is learn it so you can go save these pieces, because sometimes people don't know what they are.
Right. There
have been Da Vinci sketches that got thrown away in people's trash.
Yeah.
And then someone found them in a trash can. True story.
That's awesome.
So learn about it so you can find them and save them for all of us.
Exactly.
The catalog pamphlet for the Sotheby's auction, so the actual, just the auction pamphlet that shows the world record holder inside of it when they were selling it, the lot number.
Right.
That's a $50 collectible now.
That's funny.
And from the 1990s, because glass collectors, it's a piece of history.
So from the 90s, if it was sold today, I don't know what the inflationary factor is there, but
I think it's probably still around $50 to $60.
No,
you mean on the actual basket?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure $250,000 was very well insured when they paid that for it. I'm sure they made sure their insurance covered more than that. One would hope. But so interesting. Glass paperweights have value. I guess that was my very first point that I was trying to make. Don't discount them.
Some very good values, exactly.
When it comes to, so how to value these, that was one of the questions in the email. It was just like, could you just do how do you identify it? Can we see it? How would you value them? You can look up how to identify these things. Glass collectors are more than happy to tell you. Yeah. You can read about it. You can research it. So do that. But for the purposes of this video, I'll say that like Google will give you bullet points. And they'll say, those quick mess bullet points that are always like poorly summarized. Workmanship, design, condition, rarity. Yes, but there are actually other things. Those things matter, and we'll talk about those and how to identify them. But you also need to know how to appraise not just those things correctly, but other important factors, like the audience you're selling to. So selling an American favorite in Japan is going to garner less of a sale price. Yeah. The way selling a Japanese favorite in Russia is likely going to garner much less than the same contemporary Russian favorite of that time being sold in the same auction. So you have to think about your audience to some extent.
Okay, it's logical.
Another way to think about that is the demographic of person who's buying, not just that day, but overall. So generally, more contemporary, modern pieces are going to do better with younger, hipper generations and art collectors. Whereas vintage and antique pieces are going to do better with more established collectors. Yeah. So not necessarily a younger person buying their first object of art to put in their home as like just one piece. They're more likely to head to something modern or bright or fun, at least in this time period.
Right.
Whereas an established collector will be going for that very beautiful antique or vintage piece, which is more of an acquired taste.
Yeah.
So knowing your audience is part of valuing an object. Because if you're trying to sell it to an audience and overvalue it for that audience, you won't be able to sell it. And if you're trying to sell it to the wrong audience, you're going to get less for it. So it's just something to think about. How do you value something? It actually depends on who you're selling it to, when, and why.
Right.
So you have to think about that. If you have 500 of them at an estate sale and only 200 people foot traffic, you're going to have to decrease the value of your objects.
Logically.
Versus if you're willing to sell it at auction over the course of a year with heavy promotion in front of it to the entire world internationally, you can value that same piece much higher. So that's something to think about that you won't see in a Google bullet point ever. Those are factors. You have to think about those factors. As a collector as well, it can change the value.
Yeah.
Maybe you have just a Japanese collection, just a Russian collection, just a Swedish crystal collection. So...
like this one?
Yes, like that one. Condition matters. Scratches less in value. Chips and cracks really less in value quite a bit.
Yeah.
Unless, and I feel like I should say this because this is the point of our videos, is to give a little more information.
Yeah.
Chips and scratches less in value unless there is a documented history, like a recorded and verified provenance, if you want to get fancy about it, right? Which, why wouldn't you want to get fancy about it? Why not? So Michael Jackson it was given to him on stage during his last performance as a gift from his daughter, and he dropped it and there's a nick.
Right.
Okay. That might increase the value because it actually establishes
now it has character and identifiable
right.
character.
Or it was cracked at the Battle of Waterloo, the way or like the Liberty Bell.
Yeah, so the same thing.
There are exceptions to every rule, and that would be an exception that an appraiser would take into account. However, generally, this level of glass being sold publicly, say at auction on eBay, or when you're collecting it from different established places locally, maybe in your community or within your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Chips, scratches, cracks absolutely degrade the value of these objects. Discoloration, yellowing, greening, staining will absolutely devalue the piece. So that is something to think about that I don't think they'll mention on Google. Again, and like, well, you could say inclusions as well is going to lessen the quality of the piece. Like if it has little bits of lead stuck inside of it. I mean, yes and no. There are vintage marble collectors who will seek out specialty, unique, like end of day glassware marbles that might have a little bit of the rod as an occlusion that's actually marring the marble, but they prefer it and they're willing to pay up for it. So, exceptions to every rule.
Exactly.
Kind of need to know what you're doing, kind of need to research the piece itself. But generally, stay away from occlusions, stay away from scratches, stay away from any marring of the surface in general. You want, like, clear glass is generally good. Striking contrast, bright colors. These are things to look for. Very vibrant tones, unless the artist intended subtle tones or intended cloudiness on purpose.
Right.
Which is different than, say, a Chinese factory produced, not that there's anything wrong with some very beautiful Chinese pieces, but I'm talking about mass-produced, machine-made pieces where there's a cloudiness to them and they're not good quality. That's different than a piece of studio art glass where the artisan is intending to make it look like the Milky Way and therefore milky and cloudy or something. Yeah. So again, kind of like exceptions to every rule, take these things into account and think about what you're doing. Generally, it should be clean, sharp, distinct, bright, clear, all of these things in a general way. What you want to get away from is things that aren't being done by an artist on purpose. I think that's probably the best way to go about saying it.
Right.
So a master hand, say with Volcanic bubbles, like an Italian Murano piece, like the one you have on your stand there. That is a master craft. That's a master hand that's established that pattern. They're perfectly uniform. Every bubble is exactly the same size, exactly in the right place.
Symmetrical.
Yeah, yes, absolutely symmetrical. you want to avoid if an apprentice was trying to learn and make that piece and had like a lack of intentionality towards what they were doing, or a lack of experience because they hadn't fully learned to do it perfectly yet.
Yeah.
So when you see a big bubble on the side by accident, or a couple bubbles out of place when they were trying to create that pattern, that would lessen the value of that piece. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense.
I'm trying not to be too confusing, but I feel like it's a little bit intense. So just try to avoid things that are not supposed to be there when it's a fine piece. That's being done by hand. So lack of experience, lack of intentionality towards the craft, messy, sloppy, accidents in the glass. The more advanced and technical the techniques used and the design applied, the higher the value.
Right.
That's another thing that's going to determine value. So if there's one technique, is Millefiore in there with the cane rod flowers. That's one. Second technique, there's a waved. In the yeah.
One.
So I'm just talking about the one you have on your stand because it's on your stand. But you see the wave design of the blue coloring on the external layer. That's a second technique. Then you have the Bullacante bubbles.
Right.
That's a third technique. And it's cased in the clear glass. So it's 3 different techniques being applied in one object. That each technique, new technique on top of every other technique done well, is going to add value.
I'm going to highlight this piece.
Ooh.
It's pretty shiny.
That's fun.
That's fun. I like it. The simple things.
That's cool. We should get you lights for all under your shelving.
Just have illuminated shelving.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
From the base, though, it has a really great effect. I don't think you'd get the same effect with like a line of LED lights externally shining on them would create a different lighting effect.
For sure.
That's very cool to have it lit up internally.
Yep.
So, what on earth was I talking about? What on terra firma? Techniques. Oh, the complexity. That's going to add value. The more unique a piece is, yes, that will add value.
For sure.
If the artist only made 5.
Right.
If there's only 8 of 100 still left on terra firma, right? It's a known thing. The provenance of the known pieces inside of collections has been established. There's only 8 of 1,000 left.
Right.
In existence. If it was a rarer shape or form than what most other people bought in the 1950s from that glass studio, everyone went for the sphericals. So the rectangles are more rare for that year in producer. That will make it rarer and more valuable.
Makes sense.
All of this information, the glass is kind of like jewelry, but a million times better in some ways. I feel like sometimes the jewelry industry with fine gemstones and fine weight metals will be kind of cagey about information to the average consumer. They'll be very opaque, very clear about what you're buying, why, what it's made of, and what its value is.
Yeah.
But they won't tell you why.
Right.
So that you couldn't pick up the same gold diamond encrusted watch and know its value the way the maker would. Glass isn't like that. You can go online, glass collectors, the history of glass, you have the Corning Glass Museum, there are established values, you can go find this information, you can find all of this information online for every single piece.
Right.
If you're willing to take the time to do it. So in that way, it's really incredible.
Yes.
It's quite pleasant.
There's even Netflix shows about it.
What is the name of that show? We should mention that. There is a great Netflix show that they recently brought back. And there was even a more like general, not subscription fee based one as well, where they were in studio. Was it called Blown Away?
Blown Away.
Or something?
I think so. Something along those lines.
There's a couple of them.
Yeah.
It's kind of having a resurgence. They're trying to kind of bring back that art movement.
Yeah.
And you can see all the ways they make this glass, and we'll address it in a later video.
Yeah.
You can already hear me. I'm talking for 10 minutes. It's incredible, and we've not even gotten through one piece fully. But we'll make other videos. We'll go through all the pieces here, all the signatures, all the values. And maybe towards the end, we can link in some of the really great videos that people can watch for the creation and techniques of these items.
Okay.
So it's just easy access for them to watch, because it is amazing to watch.
For sure.
You'll learn all about frit versus cane glass, all the Italian words that are used in the craft.
Yeah. In
the craft. It almost sounds like cold. So
different kind of craft.
Kinda. Is Takara ripping something?
She's helping the video by destroying boxes that we gave her to destroy.
Oh, she's recycling cardboard.
Yes.
Our puppy is recycling cardboard.
She's an earth-friendly puppy.
So it's so funny that she does that. It does make it easier to fit. She breaks down the boxes. You can find all this information online. Glass collectors are very prolific. They write a lot of articles. They write a lot of specificity pieces.
Yeah.
Museums will write pieces and articles about artists that they're showing, and galleries will as well. You can look that up to understand the art form. If nothing else, you can reach out to those people. You can reach out to the artists. Some of them are retired, but you can reach out to the museums that showed their works. You can reach out to the Corning Museum. I wouldn't say bother the Corning Museum to find out whether a Chinese piece is like mass-produced.
Yeah.
You're not going to get an answer. But generally, if it is something, people want to help, especially in this art. So, and you can just somehow someone knows something. So just keep reaching out, keep trying to figure it out, and you will. It might be in Scotland. You might have to Google translate some French or some Polish and emails.
Or Swedish,
yeah. But you can find out.
Yep.
So what else? So not just condition, not just rarity, not just workmanship, technique, design, form. Other factors in valuing a piece. You're going to have, other than audience, which matters, materials. Materials matter when you're valuing a piece.
Okay.
A piece with 24 karat gold inside, like either of these two, is going to be worth more. A piece with rarer substrates added to the silica, more expensive colors and dyes, more expensive, harder to find ingredients that are harder to find, added to create the color rods or frit. That could raise the value, could make it worth quite a bit more. Does it have diamonds embedded in it? Does it have silver?
Right.
Not just gold. Does it have other fine gemstones encased in glass or studded? These things matter. All of those things, like applied gemstones, are going to matter in increasing the value. It could be worth more. The glass itself. What era is it? Is it American glass or French cameo glass or Mexican glass? That can actually change the value of the piece.
Right.
So materials, the actual ingredients in making the object, can change the value. Age increases the value with finer objects. If it was already rare and valuable 50 years ago, then it's more valuable now.
For sure.
Generally, and again, this is going to be one of those, it is 108 degrees outside. You cannot go on the deck right now.
No, not the time
for it. I love you very much. Sweetie,
dog break.
There is an emergency heat wave warning.
It's called the heat dome. Yes.
It says you can't go outside. It's not my fault.
No.
We'll take you outside after the sun goes down. Okay. Your little paws were burned. Look how sad she is. She's staring at me like I've wronged her.
She likes the glass, though. She stares at it.
Generally, weight will increase value. So now I'm thinking of the people who are, say, going into, like, Goodwills.
Yeah.
I would look for the quality first. Look for those things that I mentioned. Right?
Yep.
Contrast, cleanness, no occlusions, no murkiness, no discoloration. And you can tell. You can tell the difference. Look at some pieces. Just go online and look at inexpensive machine-made import pieces versus incredibly high-quality antique and vintage items that are selling at eBay, Sotheby's, what have you.
Yeah.
And you can learn to spot the difference very simply looking at those photos. And we're going to show you some of that here as well.
Right.
I'm not trying to bore anyone. I'm just trying to remember all the pertinent information off the top because I'm not going to go back to it later.
Yeah.
In a general way, if you're doing that, look for the quality, but also the weight. If it's heavier, it's probably worth more. This is one of those things, kind of like a lot of ceramic crafts. Ironstone, antique ironstone is heavy. It weighs more. Right.
Like
crystal lead weighs more. good high quality glass tends to weigh more, oddly enough.
Yeah, it's weird.
So when you pick it up, it's really heavy. It's probably worth more. Unless it's really ugly or done very poorly.
Yeah, and they're out there for sure.
Exceptions to the rule. But for a general rule, that's a good rule. More desirable shapes increase value. So a rarer shape, a more desirable shape, people are going to want it more. That'll increase the value. I don't think they're going to mention that on a Google bullet point where it's saying just look at rarity and design. Well, I guess that is kind of design if they say that on Google. I don't know. I'm always thinking of those like summaries Google gives when people go like how to value glass, and then it gives these horrible summaries. But it's like Google's trying. Yeah. It's trying, but it can't get fully there. Right. You need to learn terms. You're going to have to, and that's why I think William mentioned kind of like the Netflix show. It's enjoyable to watch. You get to watch these artists in competition with each other, friendly competition overall. And you learn all these terms, how the techniques are used, what they look like when they're done well. Absolutely. So terms like lamp work, what is a sulfide piece? There's sulfide glass, a bohemian piece. Is it Italian blown glass? All sorts of different things.
For sure.
Okay. My next suggestion, bit of advice, I don't know. Mm-hmm. This, can you hold it in front of the camera? Cloth measuring tapes. I do not want to talk about the amount of people I see. Was I in the shot?
No, it was a vibration.
Oh,
I think because I'm using a hollow stand. It's picking it up. Yes, cloth measuring tape.
You don't want to damage it. You don't want to drop it. You don't want to be the one to scratch it.
No.
So maybe you're trying to figure out, is it a 3-inch piece that's worth less or a 5-inch or 6-inch piece that's worth a little more?
Right.
And you're in someone's dim garage and you want to measure it. Keep that. First of all, this folds up tiny in your pocket.
You just roll it up. You don't have to
It's
carry a big
lovely,
piece.
lovely little tiny thing. Maybe you're a collector and you're like, I only have room for a 3-inch piece on my shelf, not a 6-inch.
You could probably carry a yardstick around with you. Might be a little awkward. So this is a little bit better.
Well, and the yardstick wood is harder than cloth.
For sure.
Could also scratch glass.
Yes.
So here's what I'm doing. I don't know if you would call this a grandmother thing or a teacher thing, but out of respect to the art and the craftsmanship of these pieces, I would just like to promote the idea that people carry cloth measuring, and when they're doing photos for eBay or what, if you're using cloth in the picture or to measure these items, you are far less likely to damage these items over time.
Yes.
And this fits in your pocket, and it's easy.
Yep.
And then you're not going to worry about, I've seen someone with a metal measuring tape and the thing retracted and it chipped the glass paperweight, which was a $400 paperweight, and they scratched and chipped it because it retracted without them.
They go fast.
And it absolutely destroyed the value of that piece. But so much worse, it was a fine antique.
Yeah.
That then will be marred for the rest of its existence.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have a cloth measuring tape. So, okay, I'm done. That's kind of my lecture. Be one of the good guys.
Yes.
Be on the side of the angels. Be out there with your cloth, not damaging things, being careful and wonderful to these historic pieces of art, for multinational, cultural pieces of art.
I mean, you got pieces all over the world here, and this is just what, 24 maybe, if that.
That's your collection. How many did you pull out?
I don't know. I should have counted.
So what are we looking at? We're looking at, okay, I'm going to stop going over just general things. Let's talk about this piece. I think that helps people learn. The piece that's on the left.
The highlighted.
So I will refer to these as bottle pieces or perfume bottle forms. They're not really. What it actually is, it is a spherical paperweight with a knob attached to the top for functionality. It's so that when you're using it as a paperweight, you can easily move it around to hold different papers around your desk. And if you're one of the more savvy collectors and posters, if you're trying to sell an item like this, knobbed sphere, knobbed paperweight, paperweight with handle, all better terms than bottle, because it's actually not a bottle.
Okay.
It's not a bottle form. It doesn't open from the top. It doesn't have a lid. It doesn't have a hollow entrance from the top.
Yeah.
So something to think about if you want to be a little bit more elitist.
Nothing wrong with that.
Fratelli Toso. I'm absolutely distracted by her little clickety clicks on the wood floor. Okay. Every time we try to make a video,
she just wants to be involved.
This baby puppy starts walking around. Okay. Don't you want us to tell the audience about the Italian Murano? Okay.
She said no, she'd rather sit outside at 108-degree temperature, but
Italian family. Now I'm thinking about The Godfather. The Fratelli Toso Familia.
Great film.
I'm sure Fratelli Toso Familia. Yeah. A glass factory itself was founded in 1854. Fratelli Toso Murano, glass knobbed paperweight. This one's Volcanic, meaning controlled bubbles. That's all those little bubbles.
It's a great word. I love using that word.
Yeah. And it's a great word to use if you're a collector making a little display tag, or if you're a seller and you're trying to resell the item to savvy collectors or very established collectors. Volcanic, use the Italian.
Yes. So
Volcanic, controlled bubbles. Millefiore, another Italian word, million flowers. There's not a million in there, but that's the term for flowers in the glass like that. It's a sphere. Fratelli Toso site itself, the current site for the existing glass creation and company, is lovely. And we'll have to include a link on the video for that.
They got a lot of nice pieces.
They really do. They have historic photos of them blowing glass, a virtual gallery tour. It's like a 3D gallery tour on their website. So you can walk around their gallery in Murano. This particular sticker is their silver foil square, circa 1960 to 1970. So if you come across this exact thing, now you know the date, at least in a general way. Economic difficulties, and that's the genuine, that's the authentic sticker. I haven't seen this one faked the way I've seen so many other Murano logos faked, especially on vintage pieces that aren't vintage and they're being made modernly. I don't see fakes of this, but just in case, that's the authentic one. So they started having like economic problems and they had to split into two companies. So that one was made, I don't know, 1965, 1967 would be my guess, looking at similar pieces done in the same colors and styles and techniques. Yeah. But they broke into two companies, the FT International, Fratelli Toso International, and Antica Vitreria for FT Fratelli Toso. Okay. I'm just gonna say FT instead of Fratelli Toso.
Yeah, that's good. This is hard to say.
Fratelli Toso. So they turned into basically FT International and Antica Vitreria FT.
Right.
They broke into two companies. I think one had to declare bankruptcy. It was a way to restructure. Yeah. You see that a lot. You see that with silver companies. Historically, you see it a lot. It was a way for them to survive. But FT International shut down for good in 1981. Antica is the one that stayed alive and continues on, although now it's not called that. The knobbed weights from this period before the closure, so not only is it vintage, but it's from the FT before the closure, before the companies broke apart.
Okay.
Kind of some of the history, kind of what makes it valuable and very interesting to collectors. Yes. So $60 to $125 for these pieces, depending on the variables I've been talking about. Mm-hmm. So if you're in the audience, maybe you're guessing in your head, and I'm going to tell you in a minute. So it's somewhere between 60 and 125 is where I would put this. Color. How many colors? There's at least one. It's not completely clear.
Right.
So high contrast is going to be more valuable to some people. This isn't super high contrast. Perfectly clear with very bright, interesting plum iridescent flowers inside might be more valuable to someone. Yeah. These are things you have to think about. But it's going to depend. Color, shape. These pieces do come in rectangle forms. I've seen that. Different sizes. How many techniques are there? So you have the Volcanic, the Millefiore. You have the color done in this wave pattern. You have all these things.
Yeah. such a cool piece.
However, is it layers of Volcanic in different sizes? Because they do that too. No. So this one has one layer and one size. So when I'm talking about these techniques, just think like, oh, we could have different layers or different sizes. Those things would add value.
Right.
This one is lovely. This one is actually fairly rare. It is a vintage piece. It does have its sticker in place, which is nice. Mm-hmm. It's early 70s. It's before the break apart of the companies and their closure. And it displays really well, as you can see.
For sure.
Because of the way the different techniques have been done.
Yeah.
Around the hollow core, you have those lovely flowers. So at least 75, more at auction. Especially lit up like that.
Right.
When you have just glass collectors coming for the day. So if you were guessing 60 to 125, what you were guessing, if you were just to want to sell that within 2 weeks on eBay, $75.
Right.
Now, as of 2023, these prices on some of these things are out of control when things trend or with inflation. So
doesn't take much to spike them.
Yeah, it really depends.
Yep.
Would you like to say anything else about your Toso?
No, it's one of my favorites. Just the complexity of the techniques.
It's Toso. Am I totally... If you are Italian, if I am murdering that word, forgive me.
Right.
Feel free to email me.
For sure.
And say it's Toso, not Toso.
Yeah.
I'm not sure in that list of vernacular as a company name whether that it is a familial name.
Okay.
I don't know if that changes the pronunciation.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Anyway. Pretty.
It is pretty.
Very pretty.
What's the next piece?
Whichever you'd like.
All right. Try not to put my arm.
Oh, did you show that it's hollow? That one's hollow, everyone.
Yeah.
So that you so in case you find something similar, maybe yours doesn't have the foil tag, and you're like, oh, I think this is a Toso, a vintage.
It's got a hollowed out kind of cavity, I guess you call it, at the bottom.
Which creates that beautiful hollow core for the flowers to sit on. Yeah. And then they can layer other effects.
Goes about halfway up. Yeah, it's awesome.
Very cool.
Okay. I don't think the light will affect this one. Yeah. Let's turn off the light here.
The light doesn't make that one shiny, or?
It's
Oh, because it's so black.
It's so black.
Okay, so...
It kind of looks neat like that, actually. I'll just leave that right there.
Does it look good? I can't see the camera from here. It looks like a spaceship. Do you want to talk about this one at all, or?
No. Is it the Mount St. Helens Glass Company?
It is.
Is that the one?
Yeah.
It's they make it out of, I'll butcher the exact material, but volcanic ash, right, is one of the ingredients? Or is it?
Yeah. No, that's exactly
exactly
it. So Mount St. Helens, if you're from America, you may know this if you paid any attention in history.
Right. It erupted.
And volcanic ash was spread across a significant chunk of that area.
The colors in here.
So this glassworks, the Mount St. Helens glassworks, I think William will try to focus in the signature for you. Started in 1980, but they lost. It was sold and then lost its lease later. The Pacific Northwest company that trades in volcanic ash glass now is not the same original glasswork. And I will see things misidentified or kind of mislinked to lead consumers there to the very modern pieces. Yeah. Now, I am in no way trying to throw shade at the current, I think it's called Pacific Northwest, that I don't know if they hold the trademark for the volcanic ash, but actually does retail in volcanic ash artworks from the area in glass. Because what they do, it's my understanding, is collect from local artisans or have artists in the area, sometimes not mass produced, but hand make these objects now. But this is actually more significant than that because it's not that. It's the original glassworks.
The OG.
By Hank Clayclamp.
Okay.
Awesome name.
That is a great name.
You have Clay in your last name. You're probably going to end up working with Clay. Or you're going to end up in that art form, right? In molten art forms.
Yeah. This one's a tea light holder, right?
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Yes. That it holds a small tea light. So Hank Clayclamp was the one who found a way he held the trademark.
Okay.
That's why I say it's a little more significant than the modern one. Yeah. Even though I'm not throwing shade at the modern retailing company. So he held the trademark. He figured out how to put volcanic ash into the glass. These pieces are 64% silica. That's glass, right? They're dense. When William picks this up, he can feel it. Yeah, they are heavy. They feel like lead crystal.
Can you feel that?
So again, quality can be heavy.
Yeah.
Certain ingredients can be heavy. This is a very heavy piece. Yeah. So now you know that. If you're wondering if it's volcanic ash piece because it has a very polished black base and you pick it up and it's really heavy, it might be, even if it's not signed. The White House during Nancy Reagan sent Clayclamp a thank you letter because he sent them glass ornaments from his collection. And then later, some of those ornaments ended up in the Smithsonian.
Nice.
So there's some history to this object that you could include in a description or just know when you're looking at these beautiful pieces.
Yeah. They're super eye-catching. Like you'll see them occasionally.
That peacock iridescent is a little more rare, and I really like it. The piece right next to it is a modern piece from the newer Glassworks studio, not the original one, not Hank's.
Right.
So you can kind of see the difference in the forms of iridescence.
Yep.
His pieces, for those those 1980s pieces, are different than these more modern pieces. And so here's a way to see the difference between the two.
Yeah.
One way, in the sheen and the way it reflects. Hopefully, all that reads well on camera. And the style, honestly, that one feels more like a lava lamp. Mm-hmm. The egg-shaped form, even if it was in the same tea light form, the style and design of the way the surface is done feels much more modern, artistically. So you can get a sense of those changes. You've got the peacock iridescence on both, but they're a different type of iridescence. There's different techniques being applied. Yeah. And that's one way to tell the difference between the older piece and the newer piece. And I feel like maybe you'll only ever learn that on this video by looking at two pieces from that same volcanic ash area right next to each other. Right. So hopefully we help someone a little bit. Yes. He sold his businesses in 1998, and then later the people who bought it from him, or the business that bought it from him, ended their lease in 2001. So the pieces after that, if your pieces are dated after 2001, are obviously not going to be his. Yeah. Company name on the original brochure and on that original piece, the 1980s piece. Is yours from 1981 or 1982? Something like that.
81.
Right. So
I'm trying to see it there.
His pieces were signed, and his brochures and forms and paperwork for ordering Mount St. Helens Volcanic Ash Glass, or Mount St. Helens Glass Works. Mm-hmm. That's what you'll see.
Okay. I really like those pieces.
You can see that the ash is in there because it's got a black base.
Yeah.
Underneath all that iridescence is a very black base. You have this great milky white spotting, is very kind of 80s. Mm-hmm. This is likely a 3-inch piece. Am I getting that right?
We had a fabric cloth ruler.
Fabric measure. So I'm going to start listing just attributes. Wow, I feel like my tonality spiked right there, and everyone that heard that through the microphone is going to cringe. I apologize.
Attributes.
So I'm trying to tone it down, pull some of the excitement back. I love talking about art like this. Yeah. But so you have the iridescent, the peacock iridescence coloring, beautiful. It's a vintage piece. You have it signed. You have the established maker in history. Mm-hmm. You have that great white milky spotted technique, which is another technique along with the iridescence. And you said it is a 3-inch piece, so that's about the size for everyone to get an idea. I want everyone to start guessing what the value might be. So here's all the things that we're talking about. This piece, you wouldn't know this looking at this, but it comes from the Evergreen hand-blown art and design glass collection, which originally in the 80s came in a wooden box. And one of the ways you can know this right off the bat, even if the wording is like missing or damaged, the top of the box, the logo, is a glass blower's rod at the base of an image of Mount St. Helens in the wood. It's a little wood box that these would come in. Yeah. It almost looks like a pine box. It's really charming.
That's awesome.
And then also, if you're looking at the logo going, what is that? That's what it is. It's a picture of a rod with a blown piece at the end. That was part of the logo. Yeah. What else? Rarer tea light shape. I think I mentioned that. That's a little bit rarer. So the egg shapes, even then, and his ornaments, much more popular.
More common.
Made more of them. followed by the sphere shapes. There's a lot of spheroids. Then this more like, this is almost like an indented oblong. It's not a circle, really.
Yeah.
So, price on this. I don't know. Everyone's guessing in their head.
I'm going to guess 95.
50 to 55.
Okay.
So, think about like 1980s.
Yeah, fair enough.
Not Italian Murano.
Yeah.
Doesn't have 4 or 5 different techniques. It's great. It's a piece of American history. I think the value will go up on those over time. I especially think the value will go up if if the glass art movement stops producing volcanic ash pieces. So let's say the Pacific Northwestern business that's retailing them now stops retailing them.
Yeah.
Then the OGs will be worth even more.
The OGs, I like
as those increase in value, the more contemporary.
For sure.
Contemporary. Anemone. The more contemporary pieces increase in value as well.
Okay. I love it.
I actually, it's strange. It's not worth as much as other pieces on the table. I prefer it.
Yeah, it's just,
Maybe it's because we're from the United States. Maybe because it's just an interesting form that's nowhere else in your collection, really. Mm-hmm. But I really like that one.
And color scheme. Like, just the design of it.
Yeah, there's nothing else quite like that one.
What about, let's go with gold. Gold leaf. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Excuse me while I sip my tea.
Trying to get it. That one kind of pops there. Let's see if there's best angle.
Okay, everyone look. Everyone think about what might be going on in this piece.
Get it.
How many attributes does it have? What are the possible materials? I know it's hard to tell through a camera, but best guesses. So what makes it valuable? Is it similar to other things you've seen? Is it possibly rare? Is it signed? Is the signature clear and authentic? Is it attractive? Beauty can increase value. Just the form of a piece having that kind of it factor. There's something called the Colette method, which has to do with what attracts the eye, and a very simple form of attributing values to things like glass. But I would just say in general, is it aesthetically pleasing?
Right.
So, right off the top, just based on the other two we've done, if I tell you that it's a signed paperweight from 1995.
Okay.
And you can see that it probably has gold leaf in there. Not a lot, but there's gold leaf. Knowing nothing else, what's your guess?
75?
Pretty good. $60 to $90.
Okay.
So you're right there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is a Randy Strong.
Right.
Did you show the signature on camera?
It's hard to see it on this one.
Is it really tiny? The Randy Strong signatures can be elusive. Yeah. Because his S's are very clear. If you can make out the S and then evaluate it next to another signature of his S's are all very clear. And they're very standard. But his R's and the rest of the wrong can sometimes be so skewed or minimalized you will not be able to make it out even under a loop. It'll just look like maybe FS or
That's what sometimes we have to search for the object itself, and then we'll see something either pop or it would be similar, and then that's where you'll get the hints. Oh yeah, it's strong. It's not stripple, right?
Oh yeah, so that's something to think about too. If all else fails, and you really got to dig deep down the rabbit hole, start comparing it to other signatures. Now, for that to work, you're going to need somewhere to start. You're going to need a letter. Yes. At least one letter from the name. And one of the things you can do, which actually can work quite well, is you might not be visually interpret. You might say visually interpret something as an E that's actually an N because it's done in cursive. Yeah. One of the things you can do,
glass, which is
etched on glass and blurred and minimalized, and maybe it's been scuffed. You know? Maybe the artist was writing like a doctor that day in a hurry, which is that signature on that piece is a little bit like that, where the end of the name it's so quick you can't even make it out. It just looks like kind of like a little indented line. So what you can do is if you can look at it with one, with your eyes under a loop, magnified, however you need to go about that, with light from your camera phone, however. And then with your other hand, let's say you're right-handed, I'm not assuming everyone is, but as you're looking at it, with one hand, trace out what you're seeing visually.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about look at the signature and try to recreate it. I'm talking about try to just focus on the signature, almost like autonomous writing.
Right.
So let your other hand just mimic the loops of the cursive.
Yeah.
And when you then pull away afterwards to look at what you've written, you will sometimes, it's an N, not an E. I can tell now because of that extra little bump when I really magnified the way that signature was written.
Or if you can tell, like, the name probably shouldn't have 7 consonants in a row. That's not normally how names work. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's probably not Krugly.
Yeah.
It's look, there's a little loop there. Maybe that's an O. That can be one way to help. Other than just magnifying it and taking a picture and then trying to stare. Rewriting it with your hand, for whatever reason,
we found that helpful.
Can really be helpful. That's actually something to teach you in appraisal school, too, when you're trying to make out signatures. So it can really help a lot. Randy Strong. What about Randy Strong? $19.95. You guess $75. Mm-hmm. He does do gold and black. I find the gold and black even more striking than these clear pieces, the gold on black.
Yeah.
If you're looking at that, you might be looking at this California artist. They're really vibrant. They're really high contrast. They're incredibly
pretty. The Bay Area? Or am
I... he started in Oakland.
Yeah.
Well, at least he started his schooling in Oakland. Okay. So definitely part of the California glass or California arts movement. He started in ceramics and then moved into glass after Japan.
Yeah.
But so much information way too fast for whatever audience is listening to this. So California artist Randy Strong, College of Arts and Crafts in Oakland in 1969 is where he began. Hung out with Ansel Adams for a minute. Or at least learned
the photographer
from Ansel Adams.
For sure.
Was a student.
That's cool.
Right? Hung out might be a little too short. He was a student of Ansel Adams for a moment. One of the first exchange students from the California universities to exchange with a student from Osaka, Japan and go to Japan.
Okay.
So kind of significant.
Yeah.
If you're into that sort of thing. And then he continued his studies in ceramics there. I feel like when I look at Randy Strong pieces, I know them because they feel Japanese. I feel like it had an influence on his work. I don't want to speak for the artist, but me as an audience member of his craft, interpreting his work and its influence on me, I would say it reminds me so much of the Japanese floral arrangement forms where... When I look at these things, you have like these layered symmetries that aren't mathematical but are very naturally harmonious. Yeah. And it reminds me of that. Also reminds me of the botanical leaf ink press art, Japanese art. Those ink calligraphy pressings of botanicals. And then also like the gold aesthetic where gold is applied in this very meaningful way. So it's all Japanese cultural art forms, and I feel like it really reads in his glassworks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Likely because he studies ceramics in Japan.
That'd be logical.
I would guess, but maybe he will respond to the video and say, "My name is Randy Strong, and you are absolutely wrong. That is not how you meant to interpret this piece." But I think they're just very, they're like very precisely natural, which is a strange dynamic to visually manage. I love them. Yeah. I love everything. But, I just have such respect for the people who make these things, for the artistry behind them, for the history behind them. That's why I'm talking so much about the history. I hope other people out there are enjoying this in some small way. So he studied ceramics in Japan for a while, which I think matters. And then he's in Corning. So he came back and he's in the Corning, if you don't know, Glass Museum, look it up online. Yeah. Important, will really help you in your learning and research about all of these things. Visit it if you can. Amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
It's awesome.
He's in the Louvre. He's in Paris as well. The Louvre has some pieces. I don't know if they're on display now, but
Right.
that's not really how collections work in museums. That's not how you refer to them. So he does these very sweeping multicolor, multi-piece art forms. So they almost, unlike this paperweight, which it seems visually light but is heavy.
Yeah.
He does these, it's almost to like defy gravity. Like these colorful leaves and floral stems that kind of like make glass look light.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
It makes it almost look like it's being lifted by helium or something.
Which is hard to do in glass form.
Yes. Not that I would know. I haven't blown glass, but I'm going to assume that that's difficult. Very multicolored, very multi-piece, high. He started his own studio in Northern California in the 1970s. He might be retired at this point. So he's shown in galleries. There are articles about him online. You can find his pieces to buy, and you can still view him. So I don't want to say that he's no longer making glass or no longer teaching. But he did open his own studio in Northern California in 1970 to produce glass art and also teach. The J. Musler Gallery has some photos of some of the finer floral pieces. Maybe we can put a link. And there are YouTube videos of him working in studio as well from back in the day. Right. So maybe we can include that as well.
Okay. Next piece.
Again, so maybe $75.
Let's see if this works here.
More technique. The black and gold would make it worth more. Similar as far as gold, and that's about it. So 24 karat gold again. I'm not sure. Don't misquote me. I'm not sure if Randy Strong's pieces are 24 karat, but that piece, that is a Marcolin, and that is 24 karat.
You can really see it from the headshot.
Pretty angelfish.
Swedish?
Yes, you actually taught me about this one.
Yeah. It's a...
Not originally Swedish.
Right. Art crystal.
Mm.
So...
Sorry, I'm sipping tea.
Slightly different than some of the other pieces, but yeah, it's... I think they were brothers, right, that started the company?
Yes.
Yeah. Where they studied in Murano, Italy, right?
Yep.
Which is... not a bad place to study if you're an artist or art.
William's being humble. He knows more about all of these pieces than I do. He's trying to sound so passive because he does. But yes.
It's deferential.
Everything he's saying is absolutely correct.
But yeah, they have a company in Sweden.
Yeah. Venetian family, Murano, like you said, brothers. Yeah. Learned in Murano, moved to Sweden, worked at Glimma Glassworks.
Marcolin here. It's kind of hard to get the...
Then they opened their own company. It's Spanish for pretty, but bonito. Yeah. And if you're Swedish, forgive me, or Italian, it would be an Italian name, not a Swedish pronunciation. Right. Joseph? That sounds wrong. It might be Joseph.
Might be Joseph. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And Bonito.
Bonito.
Those are the brothers. Yes. But I don't want to offend anyone with a bad accent.
I took Italian a little bit. But I would probably say
Joseph and Benito.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to listen to the Italian speakers from Italy in my head as I repeat it. So, Glass Factory opened in 1961 was when they opened theirs in Sweden.
Right. So this one is a figural, but also in essence a paperweight as well.
I mean, you could call any low, dense glass object a paperweight. Absolutely. As far as listing it for sale. Yes. And you probably should include it because a lot of people might not search angelfish figural art glass. Right. But they might search glass paperweight. Yes. So... expand
your audience.
And say all the right terms for the very advanced collectors. Absolutely. But yes, include the popular terms always.
It's an awesome piece.
And when you're teaching all your friends about it, because they won't understand figural, but they might understand paperweight.
I would hope so.
And it's a good place to start before you start dumping and, just ear beating them with tons of knowledge that they need to know.
I would say...
because everyone should know.
Educate them.
Everyone should know everything about all of these wonderful things.
Show.
There's no reason why not to. Yep. So we, in North America, USA... really like Bonito, Joseph. 50% of their exports from Sweden come to us in America.
United States,
Yeah. We like them.
For sure.
They've received a lot of awards. You can see why.
It's a cool piece. The
The
awesome.
sticker on this one is an authentic gold foil sticker. Take a nice long look. If you're trying to attribute a similar piece, maybe the wording's worn away, you only see the shape, maybe you have one word. Can you read exactly what it says for everyone?
I can read Marcolin art crystal, over 24% lead crystal. The top I can't because it is so small.
It probably says made in Italy.
Yeah, it says genuine handmade in Sweden.
Oh, genuine of course in Sweden, not in Italy, sorry.
It's really small, but it's there.
Okay. So if you're looking at a similar sticker, that's what it would say.
Yes.
Sorry to confuse everyone. A 5-inch piece, so let's play the guessing game. 5-inch piece, far less technical, so less little techniques being used. There's quite a few techniques going on, right? You have the gold, you have the black, you have where they come together in a line, which is done really well, and clearly it's high contrast. It's cased, it's covered in this clear glass all around it. You have detail, good detail in the mouth, in the eye, in the lines of the fin work, pulled well.
For sure.
Right? You have the silver over the black, all these techniques. So something far less beautiful, far less techniqued, sells consistently for about $100. That's what it's going to garner any day of the week on site eBay.
Okay.
Just publicly verified or unverified, with no sticker in place, eBay online auction. Not described well. This is worth more than that. It is 24 karat gold. Remember, materials can raise value. So gold, you have this wonderful silver, applied metals, or not applied to the exterior, but included the metals in the form. So silver and gold, done in different techniques. The form is charming. It's really nice. It's the more desirable angel fish forms. There are some more like loose, kind of not as beautiful forms. And it's larger than average. The average piece is 5 inches. This is a larger than average piece for some reason. Someone just felt like using some extra glass that day, making a larger piece. This is more like 6 to 7 inches long, I want to say.
Yeah.
So it's larger than average on top of that. So if all those other things go for garner around $100, what would your guess be on this one?
$129.
$140 to $180.
Okay.
A piece this fine is rare by them to sell. People don't usually sell them, and there aren't very many of them done this well. You might find one with gold in it, or with gold and black. You will have a very hard time finding gold with black, with the silver over the black.
Okay.
Also, most of them are 5 inches. Most of them that are angelfish are not this big, or if they're bigger pieces, they're the more rounded fish forms, which aren't as desirable.
Yeah.
Even when they are other angelfishes or rounded fish forms with multiple colors with the gold inside, they're usually not this well detailed as this fish.
Yeah, this one's pretty detailed.
The mouth
pretty
is done
specific.
really well. Usually there isn't like a nice indented mouth line. There isn't always those great pulled lines through the fins. Sometimes they're just more rounded, sort of loose. There's not as much detail. So, 140 to 180. Believe retired in 1991, and the collection is still produced by a company called KM Constaglass. So, produces the collection for sale.
Yeah. I like it. It's a nice piece. Last one we're going to talk about. Put the fishy down. The peach. Show it first.
Peach with a dent.
It's a small dent.
It's
right?
a small dent. You can tell someone dropped this. That's an impact fracture. It's almost spherical.
Yeah.
It's where it was inadvertently dropped or fell off of a shelf, and that's exactly the point where it hit.
Right. It looks cool in the light, I gotta say.
Very pretty.
Yes.
So,
what's up with the peach?
The peach is very pretty. The peach, this company, what they're known for is intentionally trying to recreate sort of the silver iridescence of Tiffany and Steuben glassworks.
Okay.
And you can kind of see that in that piece.
For sure.
So Orient and Flume, Orient, yes, that word, Orient. And Flume. Here's why. The crossroads where it was named Orient Road and Flume Road, and they were at the crossroads where the glass studio opened and manufactured.
I
gotcha. And you can make out their signatures pretty well. They're tiny. They are tiny, tiny signatures. So you will need a magnifying glass or a loop. A loop is just it's a magnifying glass with a light on.
Yeah. you can see some
like the jewelry appraisers use.
Read it out, but it's etched up the top edge there.
Yes, this one is signed. I think it might have a date on it. I'm not sure. I'd have to look closer. So, roads where the studio was founded, Orient and Flume, Chico, California. They're known for this kind of iridescent work.
Yeah.
Even right now, you can go buy their works online. Look at their site. Go look it up. Go look up Orient and Flume. Beautiful, beautiful glass.
Sure.
A lot of them from the Venetian collections of fruit.
Yeah.
Beautiful pieces of glass. This is a very subtle pink peach with green leaf. So, as I said before, usually bright, vivid, high contrast colors. Not when it comes to an Orient and Flume. And that doesn't decrease in value. It actually increases its value. So, there are exceptions to every rule. This is a very subtle piece. And that subtlety, that's mimicking nature so well while trying to recreate those kind of very earlier fine glass works. That's what makes it what it is. So, pink peach with green leaf, lightly iridescent, and $95.
Wow.
That one has been dropped once. That decreases its value.
Yeah.
So that decreases the value of that piece, unfortunately. A perfect one that doesn't have that little chip, or it's not even a chip. It's literally looks like a compression point.
Yeah.
So that you got to think about that. So, but when you come across this peach in good condition, you're looking at $95 worth of beautiful artisanal vintage glasswork. This one's vintage.
Right.
So they've been around since 1972. Their art is in all the best museums. They're in the Chicago Art Institute, the Met, the Smith, the Smithsonian. I shouldn't say Smith. That's like one of those things that college professors would get really mad about. Don't call it the Smith.
Yeah.
Show it the respect. And I get it, but sometimes you're talking on a YouTube video and you've already been talking for 40 minutes and your tea is run out and your throat is sore. But
exactly. Sometimes you gotta make it quick.
I had so many professors. they hated people calling it San Fran. They loathed that. They were like, it is San Francisco.
Yes.
Some of my favorite professors would become so irate. It was hysterical. Someone would wear a sweatshirt. Like a
that's bad. Yeah, don't do it.
Like, don't do it. So, Chicago Art Institute, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Smithsonian, Orient and Flume is in all of these wonderful and international museums. So, again, they sought to create that almost reflective silver fine quality of very early Victorian glass. You
can see the sheen.
Steuben and Tiffany type.
Yeah, the reflection.
Pieces. They have beautiful latticino work, that those laced intricate pieces. My favorite is the Asiatic Lily paperweights that they have. Again, go look their website up. It's amazing. And it's helpful because doing that now, if you're still looking, this is how you learn. You might come across one of those pieces in 4 or 5 years, and you'll know them because you took the time to go look at all these different glass sites.
For sure.
And you can recognize them.
Yep.
And it's a great way to understand quality. This peach is made by artist Jones in 1981. So again, vintage, worth around $100 to $150 at auction because it's vintage. Lower side of that $100 to $150 range because it's got that damage.
The damage.
And it's a very real damage.
Yeah.
But pieces of this size, generally 90. So there's a difference between when I say at auction. So people are going to go, well, you just said it's worth $95. A piece like this in good condition, when you put it on eBay and want to sell it in 2 weeks to the public, no promotion, not waiting for a good glass collector, for the right collector, that's what you're going to be able to realize.
Okay.
You could realize more at the right auction with the right promotion in front of it, or because you're willing to wait to get the full value of the piece from the person who's looking to add it to their collection.
Makes sense.
There's a difference.
Yep.
So this is not a Swedish Orient, which we'll talk about. I think there's probably an Orient on the table. So that'll be the next video because I'm running out of voice here. And we'll do more videos. We'll just keep going and keep adding these videos to a list or something. But I see this mistake made online all the time, where this form, because it's sold by Swedish Orient, people will actually sell these beautiful Orient and Flume pieces based on, they use Google Lens or Worth Point, where other people consistently sell this as a Swedish Orient incorrectly for $50.
Yeah, that's not good.
And so they're mimicking those inaccurate Worth Point assessment sales. It's not inaccurate in the sense that it didn't sell for that. It did, but it's sold incorrectly for that over and over again within the last, say, 2 years, because everyone's using the same Google Lens, which is leading them to the wrong photos.
Yeah.
Because they're very similar pieces. So knowing to look for the signature, knowing the difference in the quality, knowing the difference in a vintage piece like this that doesn't have the higher levels of current Swedish or contemporary Orient and Flume pieces, it's a much subtler, much silkier, soft iridescence.
Yeah.
It's not bright, striking, and covering the whole piece. It's actually worth more because of that, not less.
It's an awesome piece.
But people go, and I see it, and they get it wrong over and over again. So I just want to point that out.
Okay.
This is one of those tricky ones where you can't just rely on Worth Point. You need to do your homework a little bit. And it is just because people are inaccurately basing it on another seller's earlier mistake. And then another seller does that. And another seller does that based on that seller. And then it just keeps going on and on and on.
Yep.
And then everyone kind of loses out. Because it's rare, too, that a collector looking for an Orient and Flume is going to search it incorrectly as a Swedish Orient. And they're missing out, too, because then beautiful pieces that they're looking to correct, they can't even find online to collect because they're mislabeled. These are really amazing. The new pieces, the Venetian stylized iridescent fruits. There's an orange collection out right now. It's really gorgeous. They sell out really quickly sometimes, the very nice ones. You can buy them from their gallery now for 100 to 120 retail. I think like a peach probably goes for 120. So there's like a smaller piece. It's probably 110 or 80. Because they'll do multiple fruits in one collection. But the fun thing about that is you could add contemporaneously to your vintage collection, or go when you can.
You can still get them.
Buy new pieces, like say one piece a year. Maybe you want all peaches or something. It can be very fun. But you can't get these amazing vintage pieces through their online current studio glass retail.
Right.
So they're worth more. I'd say get the beautiful vintage and antique pieces that you can find, and then go add contemporary pieces from the current studio as well. Why not? This is very much like a California's glass obsession collector's piece.
Yep.
That's why they're worth so much. A lot on this table is actually, I think we talked about at least 2 or 3 different.
Might be because we're in California.
Yeah, we'll use a lot of California.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, we will do, I hope that was helpful, and we'll do another video as soon as we can.
Yep. Cheers.
Cheers.